If you're watching this video, that means you're under contract. Congratulations. It's awfully exciting. And this process is going to move, and it's going to start moving fairly quickly. So the first thing I need you to do is get your inspection scheduled. The sooner, the better. And I always recommend that you're able to attend the last hour or so of the inspection. That way you can get a good understanding for items that are of concern to the inspector, items to keep a look at, and just general routine maintenance type of items. And plus, it's just nice being there, being able to ask the inspector questions, and make sure you bring a notepad and take notes, and that way you have a really firm understanding of it. It's also important to get that inspection completed early. And the reason for that is we only have, so much time to get our inspections completed, and submit a remedy request if that's the route we're looking to do, or terminate the agreement. A few other items that I recommend testing for, as I previously mentioned, number one would be radon. I would also recommend that you have a sewer scope completed, especially if the house is an older house. That just consists of running a camera down the sewer line, out to the road, and just making sure those connections and there's no roots in the line, everything's fairly secure there, or there's no blockages. Because if there's a major problem there, that could amount to a good amount of money. Another thing that I would recommend is just getting a septic looked at. If you have a septic tank, public versus private sewer. So it might make sense to call out a septic company if there's an older unit, and have them do a deep dive into it, make sure everything's functioning properly, get an expectancy on how long they feel the septic might last for. If it's a newer septic, it might be fine just to have the home inspector inspect it. They can, do something called a dye test. They flush dye out through the septic system and make sure that dye is leaching properly into the field. Some counties in Ohio actually even require this. And you can also scope that line going to that septic system and make sure everything's okay, and have somebody drop the camera down in and make sure that tank is satisfactory as well. Also, your lender's going to be working concurrently with me as well. They're going to be requesting additional documentation from you. They might need updated pay stubs. They could need any number of things. So just be prepared on that line as well. And just make sure you're able to get that over to your lender as quickly as possible, to keep this process moving along. Another thing that will happen early on is the title company is going to go ahead and get in contact with you. It's my job to provide them with your guys' contact information so they can reach out and get what's needed from you to them. So just a lot of people ask me, oh, is this email legitimate? So please ask. I always appreciate it when my clients reach out and they're like, hey, is this email real? Another thing that the title company does is they send out a title commitment. This shows everything that is recorded on the deed, with the recorder's office with the county. So, this will show any easements in place. It will show how much, the lien that, the owner has on the house, if they have a mortgage. Any other liens. It'll detail all that information just to be very transparent. What is going to happen next is the lender is going to go ahead and put you into underwriting. An underwriter is going to go through your document and all your documents, make sure everything's correct. They're going to go through the purchase agreement, make sure everything is spick and span there. They might call for an addendum if like an address is misspelled or somebody's name's misspelled, just to clarify things. And they might request additional documentation from you as well. So just be prepared for that. And once everything's clear, the lender's going to go ahead and give you a thumbs up and say, hey, we're clear to close. And they're going to go ahead and balance their numbers with the title company so they both have the same thing, and we'll go ahead and proceed to close. While the mortgage company and title company are doing all the fun behind the scenes work, it's my job to to verify that, number one, the work that we negotiated in the remedy is getting completed. It's my job to make sure that, everything is going forward correctly and we're not hitting any speed bumps along the way. During this process, there will also be a mortgage survey that takes place, if you're getting a mortgage especially. So what that's going to detail is where your property lines are within 6 inches or so. I'll give you a really good idea for that, show you any encroachments, you encroaching onto your neighbor or your neighbor encroaching onto you that you should be aware of. The local government authority can also require a survey. If they do require this, that is payable on the seller side of things. Within 3 days of closing, we will have the ability to do something called a final walkthrough. This is where we go through the house one last time and verify, number one, all the work was completed that we negotiated. Make sure everything looks good. Make sure there's no broken windows, like a wall didn't get scraped due to somebody moving furniture. Make sure the hot water tank's working. Make sure that the furnace is working. If we're able to test the AC, we go ahead and do that. We can't really test the AC if it's below, 40 degrees out. So, because we don't want to do any damage to that unit and, things can happen there. So just make sure everything's functioning properly and, going according to plan. It's my job to go ahead and verify that. And, it's your job to go ahead and just, I think this will be a great place for our TV. I think this will be a great spot for our sectional. Chat along those lines. So, this is a fun time. Feel free to bring your family if they want to see the house. And it's just make sure everything is all good. A few days prior to closing, we should receive something called settlement statement. It is all the credits and debits on both sides of the transaction going down. It details every expense, where the money's going, what the money's going towards, and it's gonna, at the bottom, it's going to detail your down payment and your closing costs together and what you need for closing. So we're going to go ahead and go through that, make sure everything is correct, and make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. There are mistakes that happen on this, and it's important to catch those as early as possible. Throughout this process, it's also important that we don't open up any new lines of credit, like major lines, automobile purchase, large credit card purchase, opening a credit card, anything along those lines. Because if we do, it might mess a bit with what the lender's doing and throw off your debt to income ratios, and it could potentially kill this transaction. That's the last thing we want to do. So beware of that. Make sure that, we're not doing anything along those lines. And if you have a question, if something's okay to do or not to do, ask your lender. They'll be able to give you, a very good idea as if something will really impact you greatly. And finally, the closing. So please be sure to bring one form of ID. Some banks require two, such as Huntington. They will from time to time. So be sure that you bring 1 to 2 forms of identification. And what we're going to do is we're going to sit down and go through all the documents and make sure everything's correct, sign paperwork. The closer will do a good job of explaining what each page means. If you want to read it, please, if you want to read through all those documents, please let me know prior to, so we're not sitting at the closing table for several hours, because they can be fairly significant. And the title company can send those to you earlier in the week and help answer any questions along those lines then. But we'll work our way through the paperwork, finish up, get our closing picture, and if we don't have a delayed possession, I'll give you the keys if your money's wired and everything's properly been done to that point. I hope you've enjoyed this series. If you can think of anybody that this might be able to help, please feel free to share it with them. And I'd be happy to take care of them as well. Feel free to give me a call or shoot me a text anytime. And my book of business is open to you. So if you need a plumber, HVAC guy, whatever, just let me know and I'm happy to help. Thanks again.